Going live. It is showtime. And it's showtime right as the screen is showing game over. What an ominous way to start the live stream. Well, hello, Hannah. Hope that you are doing well, and everyone else who pops on into to view this live stream. Hope that you are having a great day, morning, evening, wherever you are at. And yeah, let's start getting into this day. I hope to be joined very soon by our very own Nathan. Uh, so I will not be alone tonight. Well, I mean, with you guys, as there's always good times. There's always fun people here, but uh, at least over here on my end. So let me make sure I get the invitation sent out to the people who most need it. I'm running just a wee bit behind because I've once again been babysitting, uh, which is for anyone who for all those people who know what that's like. Uh, that means that you are busy until the very end. And so everything else just kind of falls by the wayside for a little bit. All right. So, with invitation sent, so you got an email from Toby Fox, and it's dark screen. What? How did you get an email from Toby Fox that's just dark screen? Hey, we've got White Jovian here, and we got Arts and Master Knight DH. Excellent. Master Knight says, not clear on the false start concept. Well, that is what tonight is about. Identifying the false start problem and helping people to overcome it. ISO's here. Hello. Great to have you here. All righty. So I'm just going to wait a little bit for Nathan to hopefully pop on in. And so in the meantime, for anyone who missed it last night, towards the end of an Elden Ring and Rant live stream, we got some news about Deltarune, with some lore insight to Noelle playing cat petters, and then also Caddy showing up and wanting to get petted by Noelle. I see another ship on the horizon. For everyone involved in the shipping war, man your cannons, batten down the hatches. Things are about to get crazy. And he says, how much does personal life things work their way into your writings? Excellent question. So let's see here. In my own writing, as far as things from my own personal life goes, in my series, The Legend of the Ten Lords, a lot of the weird things that happen along, like on the periphery, for the high schoolers, are absolutely things that happened either when I was a teacher or when I was a student. Is something going to happen with trains on the game screen? Not yet. Only for when we get to the battle. Deltarune in 26 tomorrows. Yes. So Deltarune not tomorrow, but in 26 tomorrows. We're getting there. We're so close. Wait a second here. Check my email inbox. Well, the thing is, I didn't subscribe to any of the newsletters, so unfortunately, I don't get the messages from Toby. I just pilfer off of what everyone else gets. But other things that make their way into that have subtly made their way into my work. Let's see here. Having gone through my own fair share of foot problems, I've got one character whose football career ended because of foot related injuries. Because I'm like, hey, I know what that feels like, And let's see here, whether personal biz for my book Sandwich Desperados, it takes place in Tucson, which is where I live. And so if you know what to look for in the book, you can tell when characters are out in the farmlands of Marana, when they go to a certain mini golf course. Also, the geography is all real. There we are. There's Nate. Huzzah! Yay, we got the Nate. So the geography is all real, including the hidden tunnel in Tucson. I just don't give any of the real names to the place because because I do not want anyone to actually try drive the Tucson Cyber, because that will lead to death. Tyler Goodman says Murder Drones is now in Prime Video. Oh, so Prime picked it up.
I was gonna say, Lars, you just outed yourself with the Sidewinder Road.
With the Sidewinder Road,
being in Tucson.
Here's the thing: is that if anyone say you have to actually know Tucson in order to follow the actual Tucson Sidewinder race. There is one road. There's at least one road that I know of that is like a Sidewinder, which is really crazy. And if anyone tries to drive that as fast as they can, they will end up launching themselves into someone's house.
That sounds like a challenge to me.
You know what? I would ride with you as you took on that road. That would be fun. And also like horrifying. Like luckily it's
on
not
a closed course, of course.
What was that?
I said on a closed course, of course.
Of course. Yeah. And at least it's not in Oro Valley, where if we do get caught by the cops, then we go to jail for like 10 years and have to pay an arm and a leg. Okay, actually, fun, really ridiculous story. This is true, and everyone who did this is stupid for doing it. In Tucson, the area of Oro Valley is notorious for giving out speeding tickets. And a few years ago, and they always go for like maximum penalty in Oro Valley. They do not hold back. So there was a cop a few years ago in Oro Valley who was like super hot, and all the ladies started speeding in Oro Valley in hopes of getting pulled over by the hot cop, so that way they could flirt with him. And when I heard that on the news, I was like, "You've got to be kidding me! Why? For the hopes of flirting with the hot cop, you guys are willing to risk going to jail? Because it's Oro Valley cops. They do not mind doing that." Jovian asks, how do you feel about making up things that don't make sense, plot science, but titillate the reader and audience? I'm totally fine with that. My flagship series, Legend of the Ten Lords, is all about magic based on imagination. So many things that these characters are doing could never, ever be done in real life. And most other people who write fantasy and sci-fi wouldn't even try to do some of the stuff that I do, because it would just be so world-breaking. And I'm totally okay with that. I said, simps will simp. You can't stop the freaks from being freaky. Yeah. But my advice for people is, even if there is a really hot cop running around out there, don't do something illegal to get their attention. It's just not worth it. Okay. Let's see here. Nate, are you ready to just start diving into our lesson for tonight?
I am. Can you still hear me okay? I was messing around with my audio settings. I don't know if it sounds weird now.
I can hear you just fine.
Okay, that's all that matters. Yeah, I'm ready. I am the example for this entire live stream. I am the what not to do.
Well, then how about, because you were the one who suggested that this be the lesson, and you served as the inspiration. So how about you start us off a little bit? What led you to say, okay, gang, we got to talk about false starts?
Well, we as the internal harem were doing a writing, just like a writing party where we were just sitting together on Discord and writing, right? And I sat down to write just like everybody else. And mind you, it's been a few months since I actually sat down to get some writing done. Life, life can just get in the way sometimes, and it can get crazy. And but we all wanted to sit down and write because it had been too long since we had kind of had an earnest effort together.
Mm-hmm.
And so we all sat down to write, and I type out half a sentence, delete it. Type out another half a sentence, delete it. Sat there. How long do you think we sat there? Maybe a few hours of just me.
That was about 2.5 hours.
Yeah, about 2.5 hours. Is giving the scene from SpongeBob where he's like, yeah, and some of these, and the only thing is written was the, right. That's basically what was happening with me. I was like, all right, I sitting down, ready to write. Oh, hold on, I gotta go get myself a drink. Okay, I'm back. I'm sitting down, I'm writing. Oh, hold on, I gotta use the bathroom. Okay, I'm back. I'm sitting down, I'm gonna write. Oh, hold on, I need to go find my phone. Okay, I'm back, And so it was just false start after false start after false start. And I feel like that can really start to happen when you are like very overwhelmed because your motive, or not your motivation, your what's it called? Like when you're first starting to get the ball rolling down the hill. What's the word for that? I guess motivation.
Motivation.
Yeah, I guess motivation would work, but it's like you're getting your steam going. Like that is the hardest part, especially when it's been a while since you've written. But once I actually sat down and starting to flow is a good word. Yeah, that's a good word. Once I actually sat
down, not flow from progressive.
Yeah. The mojo. Yeah. Once I actually started to write, once I got through the first 2-3 sentences, and mind you, this was me getting inside my own head, being like, oh, but this sentence doesn't sound very good. But, maybe I want to say it this way instead. And it's like, I needed to just stop thinking about that and start writing. And once I actually got 2-3 sentences in, then it just started opening up, and I was able to actually write the amount that I wanted to write, right? And so that is where the inspiration for this discussion came from.
All right. So, with that introduction then in, because and this is something that honestly strikes every single one of us. There's no one person out there, not even Brandon Sanderson senpai, who does not suffer from a false start every now and then. So this is, I feel, a very applicable topic to talk about. So our goals for this evening are: we want to fully identify false starts. We want some solutions on how to beat them. And then we also want to follow up with talking about dialogue, because the last week's live stream went on for quite some time, but there's still so much to talk about in terms of dialogue. And even when we were talking about like what this lesson should be on, Nate, your very first suggestion was dialogue. So
Yeah.
this
don't
is
remember
something so great to
exactly
jump on
what.
over to.
Yeah, I don't exactly remember what specifically I want to talk on dialogue, but maybe you can help remind me once we get into it.
Mm-hmm. So I don't exactly remember either, but that's gonna be absolutely fine because at least I know that TV account, and hopefully TV account jumps on here later on, was asking about foreshadowing and dialogue, and I'm like, oh yes, oh I'm ready to talk about that.
Gotcha. I remember what it was. I remember. So when we get to it,
have you written it down so that way you don't forget?
I need to. I'll say it out loud right now. That in dialogue, there needs to be a purpose and a purpose for your characters. That's what it was. So we can talk more in depth about that later, but that was one of the things that I remember wanting to bring up.
Okay. So let's see here. Why Jovian quickly asked a question. How does POV affect your writing? A great way for point. So just real quick right here, because this is a good long discussion that could be had. This would be a neat lesson to do. But real quick, points of view should be colored by the personality of the character that you're writing for. If all your characters sound the same, they're clones, and they're either clones or it's just omniscient storytelling, and it's not true POV. You want to like infuse words that would mesh really well with that character's personality. Like they're always like tubular, dude, which I know sounds really dumb, but if they're that kind of a person, that's the kind of stuff that they should be saying. If they're really snarky, you need to have snark in their dialogue or in their body language. If they're like really cold and hard and glaring at everyone, that needs to be part of what they're doing. If you don't have that infused in the POV, then you're not actually doing a point of view.
Yeah, I think this is why having characters that have some sort of like quirk. Hold on, give me 1 second before I think.
Okay. A quirk. Quirks are important.
Sorry, there was somebody at the doorbell, so I was just letting my wife know. Anyway, yeah. So with point of view, like you want to make sure that each of your characters has some sort of like unique way to talk. That way, it's easier to identify, or has some sort of personality that they kind of vibe on. The other thing I was gonna say with POV is that I see the mistake a lot, and this is especially common in like the romantasy setting. And this is like a pet peeve of mine, and it's a pet peeve of a lot of people. Is that like if a book is written from more than one point of view, you need to write it in third person. Like there is no reason you should be writing multiple point of views in first person. You could potentially do like what Brando Sanderboy did in Skyward, where the bulk of the story is written in first person from one character's point of view, but you get occasional interludes or novellas that are written in third person from other characters' points of views, right? But it's like obviously the main story is Spencer's story, and so her story is told from her point of view, and it is in first person, right? And so, not that we need to go down the whole rabbit hole of point of view, since that's not our main goal here. This is in and of itself its own false start. But for the live stream. But yeah, so it's like if you have multiple character point of views, write it in third person because it's going to flow so much better. The book that I read most recently that was very egregious on this front was Powerless. I do not recommend anybody read it. It was awful. It was a lot was said, but nothing happened, kind of a thing. There was a lot of words, but nothing was said. That's what it is. That's the saying. And it gets so confusing when you're reading, and both characters, because you hear it from a the male lead's point of view, and then the female lead's point of view, and it alternates between the two of them every chapter, right? But they're written in first person, but their personalities were not different enough to differentiate between the two. And so when you're reading, you're like, hold on, like what in the like whose point of view am I in again? Like, and so it's like confusing because you're like, why is she like being so buddy buddy with the king? Oh wait, no, this is the other guy. That's why. That makes sense. You know what I mean? But it's like the amount of mental power, it like sucks you straight out of the story, right? And like, yeah, you know, you have a little chapter heading that says from the male's point of view, from the female's point of view, right? But it just like it's so easy to like read that and then forget what point of view you're in. So my word of advice, and this is, you know, 95%, you should follow this. If you have a very specific reason to not do it this way, go for it. But in 95% of circumstances, maybe even 99% of circumstances, if your book is in more than one point of view, write it in third person. 99% of the time, that's what you should do.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, rant over. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, and here's another thing is that, like, for instance, Wheel of Time, even though it's written third person, it's written third person, does a fantastic job of infusing the narration with quirks and words that those POV characters like to use. So like for instance, Matt's chapters have tons of swearing in them, even if he's not verbally swearing, because that's just what he does. And like Perrin is like so hyper focused on stuff that like his chapters feel like they're so tunnel vision because you get so little detail of what's happening around him unless he bothers paying attention to that stuff, even though it's third person narration. So
well, and third person doesn't mean you can't have a very personalized like narration style based on that, right? So definitely depending, and you can be omniscient, like third person omniscient, or third person what is it? Is it third person?
You have third person limited, third person
limited.
Limited, third person limited, third person omniscience.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
Which very few books are actually third person omniscient, and it's kind of trippy to read a book that is third person omniscient. But
yeah, like Dune.
That's all besides the point. Like Dune. Yeah.
Yeah. Dune. Lord of the Rings gets close, which is weird, but there's also moments where you realize that it's actually limited. Like Lord of the Rings reads as third person omniscient, but it's actually third person limited. Yeah. But it's really trippy that way.
Yeah, another really interesting example of third person limited, but also no, it's almost third person omniscient, but it's also second person, is the series of Unfortunate Events. It's like kind of written like, you know, Lemony Snicket, the character, is telling you about these characters, but Lemony Snicket is his own character, and he like breaks the fourth wall, right, and talks to you, the reader, directly at times. And so that could be a really fun way to do it, where it is technically second person, but the majority of the story reads as third person.
There's and to end our false start here for the live stream, as we get off this tangent, I'm going to add in no, Lemony Snicket was he played by Jim? No, he was played by Patrick Wahlberg or Wahlberg. Yeah. Patrick Wahlberg did Lemony Snicket, which was a fantastic choice. But just real quick, I miss that J.K. Rowling did not stick with her narrative style that she had in the Sorcerer's Stone. because there are moments in the Sorcerer's Stone where we get a break away from Harry's perspective, and not just in the opening chapter, but actually in the book. There's one moment where we jump to Hermione. I might be wrong, but I think there's also a point where we jump to Ron, and there's one or two moments where she goes full-blown omniscient. And it's actually really cool to get that, because it allows you as the audience member to get information that Harry doesn't have, and it makes you either really sympathize with Harry, or it sets you up to be like, no, don't do it.
Yeah. And this is actually, that exact thing is the reason why I've kind of struggled writing Blackwings from first person, is because it's like there's so many other viewpoints that I want to touch on, but I've now limited myself to first person, right? There are some ways that I got creative to get around that, but that is definitely something you have to consider when you sit down to start writing a story. It's like, whose story is this? And do I want to be in the headspace of other characters?
Yeah, that is all stuff that you got to consider when sitting down to tell the kind of story that you want to tell. If you want to tell a story with multiple perspectives, you gotta know you gotta know how you're going to tackle that. And if you're going to do first person, just understand the limitations of first person storytelling. But to jump back up to the top, TV account, don't worry, TV account, you're actually not too late. And what are we going to, and really all you just missed was the announcements for what we're going to be talking about tonight, which is going to be false starters, how we deal with them, and that we're going to be returning to dialogue. And I said that we would actually come back to your question from last week about foreshadowing in dialogue. So with that tangent wrapped up, let's overcome our little false start here and actually dive into this. So Nate has already talked about what false starters are. This is just what I wrote for our lesson tonight. This is when you sit down to write, and then all your motivation and or all your concentration and or all your inspiration and or all your dedication flee your mind and body, leaving you an empty husk to be filled with all kinds of distractions. Squirrels! And you cannot predict when these moments will hit. And it's absolutely debilitating, frustrating when they do. And it's so much so that this can cause people to really not just trip over themselves for a day, but start tripping over their own projects. So much so that it's hard to get any work and effort and progress made on them. So much so that you end up just having that WIP, that work in progress. And we, as we know with most WIPs, they just sit there. So in order to overcome these false starts, we need to start coming up with some solutions. And when Nathan was having his hard time trying to get started, this generated a little bit of a conversation of what could we do. So some of these are a little bit jokey, some of these are a little bit more serious, and we'd also like to hear from you guys in the chat what you might try to do to infuse yourself with some of that motivation and just get going like a train as it goes, and finally the wheels finally start spinning. So here's solution number 1. Try this out, Hermione, the next time that you're struggling with a Felix Felicis. Smash your hand or face against the keyboard. Laugh, then write a sentence, and only edit the blob afterwards. This right here is just like, yes, this is silly. Most people won't do it. But honestly, one of the things that happens with so many false start moments is that you get there and your hand just hovers over the keyboard and then it goes to do something else. In this case, you just attack that keyboard. You're just want, and it's absolute gobbledygook. And that's okay because something is now there on the page. And from
And who
there, you can
knows?
laugh at it and just start going.
I look at this gobbledygook and I see Collinger, and then my brain starts working, right? Like, or Pindengurdid, that might be a source of inspiration as you start writing, right? So you never know. Like, just putting something down will, like, I feel like most false starts are a product of either writer's block or intimidation, right? And the best way to combat both of those is to stop staring at a blank page. Not to be distracted by other things, but to put something on the paper so that you can then build off of.
Yes. Exactly. And sometimes you just got to get it on there. Now then, one of the other suggestions I have, which is simply muscling through. One of the reasons why sometimes muscling through just works out really well is because once you get those first sentences on there, then the momentum begins to build. And there have been a couple of times where I'm just really tired. I'm like, I'll write like a paragraph. And then a paragraph becomes a page. And I'm like, I'll write more. But I'm like, I'm really tired. I should go to bed. But I wrote a page when I said I would just write a paragraph. Yes. Self-doubt kills. Self-doubt can kill, which is why just sometimes getting something there on the page is already beating it. You're like, ha, it makes no sense, but it's there. Take that, doubt. And yes, Hannah, no breaking your computer. Like I did, I just started randomly hitting keys. That's absolutely fine. You don't have to destroy your head or your keyboard. Now then,
it might shake something loose though.
Yeah. So that's my method. Muscling through it will help enter the flow state, and you will begin writing faster and more naturally. Exactly. Yes, Arts, I am okay. Thanks for asking. Why is there someone over my shoulder? Okay, so solution number 2, talk about it with a friend. Have them help you with the scene if you're stuck on it. It's absolutely fine and sometimes very helpful to get external input. And you don't have to necessarily use what other people are telling you to use. It's just to help you get thinking about your story. Because again, false starts are sometimes where just that the thread of creative thought is just fleeing you. You're having a hard time grasping it. And having a conversation with someone helps you at least to focus and hone in on a little bit more so you can hopefully seize it.
Yeah. So just to interject here, this is actually what helped me get past my false start. It was several fold, right? Because it had been a while since I had written. Lars and I, and Camille was there as well, and Scott. I put out into there, like, what project should I work on right now? Like, do I want to work on the project I was, or do I want to work on rewrites for a different project? And ultimately, Lars gave the advice of, like, you already know what the story is about for Black Wings. Work on your Black Wings rewrites, because then that's going to get that's going to be easier for your motivation to start to build, because I already knew where the story was going, right? So I wasn't so intimidated by what I was sitting down to write. I wasn't creating a whole scene from scratch. I was just cleaning up the terrible first draft,
Yeah.
I also do want to interject here. If you don't have a friend or a writers group, number one, you're always welcome to join, our Discord. But number two, I actually think that this is a great place to use AI to help you, like, get some inspiration. I'm not. I believe that AI is very useful when used in moderation, and I think that this is one of those instances where AI can be the friend that you need to help you kind of get that kickstart, right? Because an AI isn't going to be that opinionated on what you write, but it can help you kind of just break down that first barrier to get you in. I agree. AI animation is awful.
Yeah. And well, and just to build off of that, yeah, one of the ways that we used AI in that writing was, uh, I was grappling with a scene with a demonic goat. Uh, oh boy, and I was like, okay, guys, because I was asking your guys' opinions on like the sound that the goat should make as it screams and roars, because you have this gigantic demon goat that comes barreling through town crushing stuff, and so we were talking and kind of going back and forth. In my mind I was kind of thinking of the screaming goat gif, but you plugged in the prompt into a generator, and it provided, I think,
Yeah.
three different options, and we talked
Yeah.
about them. And then
Yeah.
from
And not
there, I was
only
like,
that,
okay, I constructed my own. I
yeah.
constructed my own paragraph.
Yeah. So we plugged it into Gemini, and um, the one of the things that I thought was really helpful was that Gemini was asking follow-up questions where it was like, okay, let's dissect this scene. What exactly is happening? You know what I mean? And so it helped us kind of come up with a like, oh yeah, like I guess if we're inside of a room, like because it asked, like, oh, are you in a house? Are you in a small space, a big space, open, outside? And then it's like, oh well, guess I didn't really think about how the sound would fill up the space we're in, and so it was like it gave you the inspiration to build out the scene even more. And
Mm-hmm.
so with AI, and I don't know, it's AI is a weird topic, right? Because I think that it's so easy to overuse it. And I think AI writing your story is awful.
Yeah, and
It's awful.
we're actually going to when we do the harem retreat, we are doing that exercise where I think I'll be the one to jump to jump on that grenade of writing a story and then having AI try to write the same thing, and then
Yeah,
you guys are going to grill me on what the AI wrote.
yeah,
So that because if you don't write anything, you just have AI do it, there will be a disconnect, and we want to show the
yeah,
disconnect.
yeah,
So,
yeah. But AI can be very good to help you create that inspiration you need to then write. Um, And so that's what I'm trying to say. It's like you shouldn't rely on AI to write your story for you, but you can rely on AI to give you some inspiration to make your story better,
mhm.
especially if you don't have a friend. One of the examples was actually, I don't know if it was that night or if this was the day after, because I wrote some more the day after. But I had like finished the scene that I was working on, right? Like I had finished the like setting up the scene. I'd kind of moved on past what I was going to do, and I had to transition into a new scene, but I didn't want to just like do a hard cut. And I was like
Mhm.
sitting there and I was like, shoot, how do I want to transition to the scene? And so I actually asked AI, is like, how do I go from a scene where she's eavesdropping about uh she's just eavesdropping on gossip to a scene where they're talking about what was taught in class. Uh, and I kind of put in the last paragraph that I'd written, and then it's like, oh, here's some options. And I was like, none of those options work, but that gives me an idea. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And then that allowed me to keep my momentum going because I would have had another false start had I not turned to AI to kind of give me that little kick um, of inspiration. And I think kind of your friend can also be that way. How many times have I been like, "Hey Lars, I need some inspiration here," and he's like, "Oh, what if you did this?" And I'm like, "Huh, I am not gonna do that, but that gives me an idea." you know?
Yes. Yes.
And I think that's the beauty of asking friends or asking AI for advice, is that it's not that that their idea is going to overtake your story, hopefully, uh,
Mhm.
but it could be the catalyst you need to get you attacking the problem from a different angle.
Exactly. Which is something that Scott suggested right here. That was the fourth suggestion right here. Shift where the scene starts. That might help you see the problem and story from a different angle. And
Yeah.
this is where having friends we can really help you on out. Or as you said, in the case of you don't have any friends but you need some sort of feedback, having something that asks follow-up questions can help you think about that. Questions always help to unlock inspiration. And ISO,
Yeah.
congratulations that you had your monthly epiphany for how you want your story to go. I just froze in place for a solid 30 seconds as the idea materialized in my brain. I gotta go right now. Right now, ISO. Like,
Put us on
ride that
pause.
lightning. Yeah. No. What we're spouting out is is not as important as your inspiration.
Yeah, you can always come back later.
Yeah. And also berries and cream, meow to you too. Meow. Uh Art says demonic goat, go on. So this will not help any of you on our Discord who are trying to solve my riddle of which fairy tale I am releasing next. This is for another fairy tale retelling I'm working on, which is called The Cudgel in the Sack, is how it translates to English, or Knuppel aus dem Sack in the original German. This is one of the weirdest fairy tales in the Brothers Grimm catalog, and there's a lot of weird ones, like the
Yeah, I was gonna
Bandit
say that's
Princess.
saying something.
Yeah, no, Knuppel aus dem Sack is utterly bizarre, because you basically have an evil goat that in the original kicks everything off, by tormenting this family, and the fairy tale ends with the goat basically becoming a demon and a monster that haunts the forest. And so in my retelling, I lean into that with the goat going full on demonic. And so there's a scene when the boys, you have three brothers who each go on their own adventure and then come back home to show off their magical gifts, but two of them have been robbed by an evil innkeeper, and so the younger brother has to save the day and everything. So at the end, the evil goat comes on in to get revenge on the family, and so I just have this huge evil, like somewhat humanoid goat that's kind of like Attack on Titan style, running through their town and just kicking up buildings and sending people and animals flying as it's going for them. And so that was the scene so like I knew I wanted that scene, but I specifically wanted, like, what kind of horrifying scream or roar is coming out of this demonic goat's mouth, because I wanted to fit just how ugly and horrifying this is in my brain. It's a really bizarre scene for a very bizarre fairy tale. Let's see here. Third option. So third solution, coming back to it, have a friend or two hold you accountable for actually getting started on your story. The threat or promise of an ice cream sandwich does wonders. Now then, you don't need to have a member of Camille's harem in your own hometown or home city there to threaten you or reward you with an ice cream sandwich. You can go in and you can ask a family member or a friend or a roommate to do this for you. And like, this is just one way of having someone hold you accountable. What we would do is like, okay, you're either going to get something started and written, or you won't. If you don't, we're going to take a slightly soft ice cream sandwich. Don't take one directly out of the freezer, because you're basically going to stab them with it. But say, if I don't write, you have my permission to take that ice cream sandwich and just smash it in my face like a pie. If I do
But
write
not
something,
into the mouth.
Yeah, not into
You
the
don't
mouth.
get to eat the ice cream sandwich. You just get it slapped onto you.
Yeah. And again, make sure it's slightly soft if that's what's going to happen, because we stabbed. I was, and I'm the one who did this, and I still feel sorry for it because I'm the one who stabbed Jed in the face with the ice cream sandwich. Oh, that was not okay. But if you do manage to write, then you get to eat the ice cream sandwich. So, yay. And ice cream sandwich in the face is not as much fun as you might think it is. A pie in the face is a little bit more fun than an ice cream sandwich. Lars, that'd be wasting an ice cream sandwich. They're meant to be enjoyed. Well, someone is definitely enjoying the ice cream sandwich one way or the other. You're either getting to enjoy it by eating it, or the other person's enjoying your humiliation as it goes into your face. Hannah with the skull and crossbones. Yeah, that's no, it was I and we actually talked about this also during that harem writing party. We reminisced about a guy who was tangentially in our group. He only showed up for like 1 or 2 meetings at most before never coming again, and that's because of drama in the group. That's its own story that we'll save for another time. Yeah, the drama llama.
Whatever. We don't have to ever touch on that.
Yeah, that's old days college cringe. But Garrett refused to have an ice cream sandwich smushed into his face. And it's like, dude, you're here, you agreed, you get the ice cream sandwich. You didn't write anything. So, ice cream sandwich time.
That's probably why he stopped coming.
Yeah.
We were just hazing out the non-believers.
Yeah. And once you get an ice cream sandwich to the face because you didn't write, it is fantastic motivation to write something. And that's also when you reevaluate your goals. Maybe writing 3,000 words this week was a bad goal. Maybe 500 words is a little bit more manageable.
Yeah.
Woo.
The other thing I wanted to kind of bring up is what we did for this writing party is that we, or at least Camille and I, not everybody did, but Camille and I actually shared our screens so that we could be held accountable to not being distracted. That didn't stop me from finding other ways to be distracted, like having to go to the bathroom or get up to get a drink or whatever other reasons, right? But that's a great thing too that you can do, is just having somebody there to make sure, like, hey, you're getting distracted, sit back down, get working, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's a less intense and less violent way to motivate you to write, or to just motivate you to not be distracted.
Mm-hmm. I remember as a teacher, I actually wrote I would do mock answers for my students, where I was like, okay, guys, so like on the test, maybe you would want to write this, and so like I would begin writing out a response that I would then project on the board for all of my students, and I mean, I didn't do this to overcome false starters, but like it actually, and sometimes projecting like what you're working on, especially like in a writing party scenario, can help out other people, because other people will look at what you're writing and be all like, oh, okay. Because like I would have students who would be all like, I now understand, Mr. Jensen, that is a good idea. And then I would also tell them, this is what you shouldn't write. I would write and be all like, why is this wrong? And then guaranteed there was always that one stoner kid in the back of the class that was all like, that's the right answer. Okay. And would like write that down as a note and then almost verbatim write that out for the test. And I'm like, no, that's exactly what you weren't supposed to write. Negative points. But yeah, it does help. And also sharing what you're working on can inspire other people, or you get inspired by other people by what they share. So like, for instance, Whitefire came about as a concept that started growing into its own story, thanks to Nathan and Camille sharing what they were doing with their own stories about dragons. If they weren't sharing that, Whitefire would never come into being. And then Tumble Teller, which is the actual book that I published, based in that world would never have been a thing. And that's one of my highest rated books. So
You're welcome.
yeah, definite thanks goes to Nate and Camille for that. Art says, who didn't agree to the ice cream sandwich smush? That would be Garrett, who isn't with us. I mean, he's not passed on to the next life. He's not in Camille's harem. Hasn't been for a long time.
It's almost been almost 10 years.
Almost 10 years. We celebrate 10 years this year.
We do.
I mean, technically the anniversary has already passed, but we get to we're going to be celebrating here next month.
The anniversary is next month. It's the 5th of June.
It is. I thought it was at the end of April that we first really met. No, man.
No,
I'm misremembering.
Because it was the week, no, 2 weeks after my birthday, because Camille had come down the weekend of my birthday, and we were like talking about our stories, and she was like, or no, maybe it was the week after my birthday. Either way, it was the first week in June, because Camille had come down around my birthday. We had talked about the story, and then she was like, hey, I'm actually, a few friends are getting together to talk about the stories. Do you want to come to talk about their stories as well? And so I was like, sure, I'll drive an hour and a half to meet a bunch of people I've never met before.
Yeah.
And just sit in a room with a bunch of nerds and talk about stories. And it was the most important and life-changing decision I ever made.
Yeah. That random meeting of strangers and friends, that is one of the best things that's ever happened to me. I hated my time in my graduate program. I loved just about every minute with all my heart for the times that we spent as Camille's harem in college. That got me through college, and that absolutely changed my trajectory for life.
Same here.
It's hard to accept writers as real people. I could be a character in your next bestseller. You could be, but yes, writers are indeed real people, as insane as our lives sometimes sound. It is true.
Yeah.
All right.
It's also very important to note that most writers are not like Brandon Sanderson level writers. Most writers can make a good living, or like a decent enough living, without being ultra famous.
Mm-hmm.
So just like artists, you don't need to be ultra famous to be an artist and to make a living. So you just have to work hard and keep working.
Yeah. If anyone asks why I go through the trouble of trying to publish 2 books a year, it's because it's like, this is the key. The moment that one book finally like really takes off and people are like, ooh, what else has Lars done? Is there anything else? Then there's an entire back catalog. And seeing that I've published 2 books each year should give people confidence that they can wait for the next book if they just picked up a new series or something like that. Art says writers are probably the most involved in what is considered real to the naked eye. Yeah, I could accept that.
Yeah, we love going to the Tucson Festival of Books because all of the authors that we meet there, even some of them that are, pretty successful in their own rights, like the example that we saw this year was T. Kingfisher. She was so down to earth. She's just a normal person. She's just normal. You know what I mean? But it's like, she probably not super wealthy or anything like that, but she just loves what she does and she treats it as a job. She, most writers sit down like a 9-to-5 job and write, and that's how they make their money. My cousin as well is a is a fairly accomplished romance author, and she same thing. Like it doesn't it doesn't it doesn't make her rich or anything, but it's enough to comfortably pay the bills and stuff. So there's definitely a job in writing. Just don't expect a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Art says we drown ourselves in the emotions and perspective of real individuals and put that into the characters we bring to life. That's part of what makes a good story. Yeah, as I'm getting so close to finishing Wind and Truth. It's only taken me like 5 months.
Oh, I haven't even picked it up yet. I need to.
I love how Sanderson gets deep into the characters, especially for characters like Adolin. Like Adolin's been I think my favorite character. Like I didn't realize that he was my favorite character by the end of the second book, but like by this point now I'm just like, you are the best character. I absolutely love you. Kaladin and Dalinar are probably the most inspiring. Seth for me is one of the most intriguing characters, but Adolin, by golly, I would just, if it was just you, I would read it. Jovian says some authors over visualize and explain. Yes, that's purple prose, and I have an example of purple prose dialogue tonight. This should be fun. Art says some characters are those who over visualize. Yes. All right. So, getting back to, I've got just 3 more solutions for dealing with false starters. And again, if anyone's got their own like special mojo, special trick that helps them on out, please feel free to share in the chat. Here's a solution. This one works for me. Walk and talk. Get yourself moving, but still go over the situation and get your thoughts out. Sometimes it doesn't need to go immediately onto the page, and you can solve the problem verbally before writing. I do this sometimes when I'm driving to work, or if I got to drive my niece somewhere, or something like that. I will have conversations with myself and help myself get over whatever it might be that's blocking me from writing. Or sometimes when you're just like, you're hovering over the keyboard and you're like, I don't know what to do. It's okay to get up and move away from the keyboard and go for a walk with someone or by yourself and chat it out, or call someone up. I've had a couple of times of just going on walks where I've talked either with a friend or with my sister Anya on the phone, and that helps out.
Yeah, I many times that I was facing writer's block or false starts, I would go on walks with Scott, and I would just chat about it. We would talk about our stories, and that saved me a handful of times. I was going to say another option is, wow. Okay, I remember now. Sorry. Another option too is to pick up like a book and turn to a random page and start reading. You might find something in there that helps motivate you or gives you that spark of inspiration to kind of get that scene moving again or get yourself moving.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Then this is something that I've been trying to utilize, especially when I'm working during the week, because the job that I have is actually out. The job that I now have is out of the city, so it's very time consuming getting out there. Then it's a full day's work and then drive back on home. So that means that I don't have as much time to write for part of the week, and there's a lot of energy that just gets drained out of me. So one of the things I've been trying to do is while I'm at work, if I have the opportunity and I've been thinking about my stories, I take down notes throughout the day. So that way I can use that. It becomes a foundation, a starting point for me when I want to write. So that way when I get down at the computer, because if I'm feeling exhausted and tired, it's hard to get that mojo flowing, to get that creative momentum and just start writing. I have notes. And even if I just start writing down those notes, just transcribing them onto a doc, already I've begun to write. And as we brought up before, that can get the momentum going. The moment you just write that one sentence, then you feel a little bit better to write the next one. And because you've already at some point during the day written out some of those notes, maybe written out a sentence or two, and then you transcribe that when you're then at home or you have time to yourself, that really really helps. Yeah, take notes, forget nothing. Exactly. Taking
My
notes out
one
the day,
caveat,
good thing.
my one caveat to that is take more than 1 or 2 word notes. The amount of times I've written down killer caterpillar, and then later on in the week I find that note and I'm thinking to myself, what the frick was that about? Like, what was I thinking when I wrote that down? Like, I have no context for what I was trying to say here. You know, killer caterpillar for what? What story is this? Where is that from? Like, why did I write this down? So definitely, if you're gonna take notes, awesome. If you need to, take audio notes too. If you're, busy and you can't, if you're driving or something, like take a audio note, or voice recording. That's what they're called. Uh, that that can save you, and make sure that you give it some context to it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Hi there, kitty. Then my last then my last proffered solution to dealing with false starters is just muscle through. And honestly, this is what you kind of have to do most of the time. Tricks and everything are fine and dandy, but let's also be honest, many times we come up with some really great tricks and solutions, and then we forget them in the moment. uh Say it'd be probably good to have those tricks and whatnot like written up or like little reminders around that would help you out with that. But oftentimes, and even with the tricks, you just have to put in the efforts, which I know false starters are that the desire just kind of flees from you, or at least the power, the desire is there but the energy's gone. Whatever the combination is, so you can and you must just get yourself going. It's unpleasant. You'll probably have to edit or delete that stuff that you just started writing, but that's okay, because so long as you get started, that's what's important. Because once you start building up that momentum, it goes a long way. Just muscling through. Yeah, again, I speak from experience. It's not always the prettiest, but it does help out. And by muscling through, sometimes that then starts getting the gears going, and then realize there's a better way that I can do this. Like again with the fairy tale story that I was talking about earlier with the demonic goat. I've My second draft for the book was me taking not even a completed first draft and just chucking a bunch of it out the window, or severely altering it, because I was like, yeah, this just isn't working. I'm muscling through, and it still just is not coming together. I need to do something different. Shift the perspective, and and then it started coming together way better. The second draft is still absolutely messy, and that's the reason why you don't publish your first draft and you don't publish your second draft. Editing, edit. Workout, yes, writing is working out.
It's
Yoga,
working out the main muscle, the big one.
The big one, the brain.
Yeah. Well, and also too is like this. I know we already kind of talked about going on a walk, but like working out or like exercising, yoga, all those kind of things, that has been proven to help brain function, and it is a very good way to actually give you some extra motivation on days. I know that on days that I like do a workout during the day, I am 10 times more productive. And I'm more likely to actually get some writing done. And so I know a lot of authors also say this, that it's really important to keep your brain physically active, or keep your body physically active just as much as your brain. Because if you're not physically active, it can really affect your brain function.
Good advice. Good insight. Let's see here. Any other solutions that have popped into your head since we've been talking about this, Nate?
No, I think we covered all the ones that I usually turn to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I wrote down all the ones that we had discussed. One of the ones that Scott brought up, and what I could think of. So yeah, so that's the say. False starters are like, it's a complicated problem when you're experiencing it, but it's pretty straightforward when you're analyzing it from afar. And here's your list of solutions. There's no one way to solve it. That's why we're giving us a whole list. And hopefully you don't have to worry about that list too often, because false starters just suck. Now then, and it's something that Nathan brought up earlier, and I'm just going to reiterate this. If you find yourself struggling with false starts, and you just need some help, feel free to reach out to us. You can either do it in the comments to any of our videos, being a member on our Discord and reaching out to people is way better than that even. And we try to do what we can to help other people out. And what's one of the great things about having the Discord server is that there are other people there in the same scenario like you, or who have already gone through that, who are more than willing to reply to you and to carry on those necessary and helpful conversations. Hannah asks, does role playing help as well? And he says yes, and I concur. It is very, very good sometimes to do a little bit of role playing, whether that be with yourself or with other people. Actually, the whole mini battle project that I've set for myself, part of that is to role play a very complicated is to help me role play a very complicated scenario that, as I've been looking at writing a magical pike and shot battle, I'm like, oh wow, this is way more confusing than I gave it credit for. Especially, again, if I want it to feel somewhat realistic and not just be character comes swinging in with magical sword, swish, 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 and now dozens of people are dead, day saved. If I want it to actually feel like a real battle, then I need to see how you incorporate magic into pike and shot. How does that evolve the tactics and so forth? And being able to play that out will be very, very helpful, but also as a way of helping me to get my toes wet with something that complicated, such as a massive role play. I want to have some fun and do the mini battles for some of the battles from the Stormlight Archive, and that's why I've given myself that project. Why Jovian write me a story? Well, I'm writing stories, and they are definitely there for you to check out. Why Jovian? I says, yeah, I remember before I joined the Discord, you really helped me with my story, Shadowbound. You asked important questions that helped me shape how the rest of the story would go. Well, fantastic. And I'm happy I can help you out. So, I am so excited to see what you write. And now that you've got more time on your hands to do some writing, I am looking forward to it. 1 minute to write a story. Generic, make it real. Lars slowly descend into the dungeon. Yes, I have been in a dungeon. I have a picture of me being locked in a medieval dungeon and almost left there.
He's still there, actually.
I am still there. Yeah. Oh, boy. All right. So with all that being said, uh, conversation time. Woohoo! Conversations. And if you want to know why there's a South Park image, because recently having a conversation with a friend, she was talking about how the Game of Thrones parody from South Park was absolutely hilarious and on point. And I watched part of it, and I was like, "Holy crap, this is amazing!" Like the conversations, the dialogue that is had in the Garden of Betrayal. So that is why this ended up in there.
When South Park wants to be, they can be extraordinarily poignant.
Yeah.
And I love them for that.
Yeah. Yeah. The writers of South, that's the thing. The writers of South Park, like, they can get really weird and crude a lot of the time. Let's be honest, they do. But when they want to be poignant, when they want to show that they can actually own Hollywood in terms of quality, they do it. And it is incredible. TV account says it's a miracle my laptop still functions. That is the story of my old laptop. All right. So talking about dialogue. Nate, I'm quickly popping up to the note that I wrote towards the beginning of the live stream. Let's see here. In dialogue, there needs to be a purpose, and there needs to be a purpose for your characters. Let's start there, and then we will address TV account's question from last week, which was, how do you do foreshadowing in dialogue?
Yeah. So kind of what I try to do, right? When, like with most things in a story, if the scene you are having doesn't really have a role in the broader story of it, it's hard to justify the scene being in there. And I kind of take the same approach with dialogue, right? And that's not to say that every dialogue needs to be exposition dumps or anything like that, but that when you have characters participating in a dialogue, there's almost always like something that needs to be exchanged, right? Like some sort of information needs to be exchanged between these two characters. There was actually a really good video that I saw on this. It was a while ago, and so I don't remember it off the top of my head, but they were talking about like script writing dialogue and how, like, oh my goodness. Oh, I wish I could remember what exactly it was, but it was kind of on the same topic where it was like these two characters, one of them is trying to get the other person to like admit to doing something, and the other person is like being very guarded about it, and it's like, obviously in this situation of dialogue, like one character is trying to get the other person to admit to doing something, right? It's not just them blabbering for no apparent reason, right? Which we do a lot in our everyday life. And it's okay to sprinkle in some of that throughout the larger story of throughout the larger story and throughout the dialogue exchange. But at the end of the day, something needs to be challenged or changed, or new information should be revealed. Something that helps progress the story forward needs to be present in that dialogue, because the characters are trying to learn something. They're trying to get information. They're trying to get an emotion out of the character. They're trying to, like, it's not just, oh, I want to talk because it's time to talk. There needs to be something happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The so Yeah, my brain's only turning to mush for a second there, which is what you don't want to have happen with your characters in a moment of conversation. Uh, so um, here it so here it so here's something that I will say as far as like a characters having a purpose. Uh, Nathan, have you in conversation have you read much from Hemingway?
um, not since I was in school. So,
Yeah,
like high school. So it's been a very long time. I don't remember most
yeah.
of it.
Say Hemingway is like it's like okay, that was required reading in high school. How many people actually read Hemingway when they're outside of high school? Excellent question. Don't know. I think my dad's the only one that I know who's actually read any Hemingway outside of high school. Hey, Marilad is here. Woohoo! Uh, so, in Hemingway's A Farewell to Arms, there are multiple scenes where loads of people are just talking in mess tense, and I hated reading those scenes as a teenager because they made no sense to me. The dialogue was so disjointed. It was so annoying. But as an adult, I realized that there was a purpose to it. And I ended up actually incorporating that a little bit more into my own stories. At least when I want to represent that there's chaos like in a scene. Like where like if people are having a conversation and there's loads of other people around them. You can't help but pick up bits of dialogue from other people. And if you're not very focused, your conversation can very easily be derailed by what other people are saying around you. And I personally sometimes like to write that into my dialogue. Again, in the right setting, when there's loads of other people speaking, so that way I kind of grasp some of that realism of this is how people would actually talk, even in a fantastical situation. And then when the tangent begins, someone's like, "Nope, get out of the tangent." It then helps to highlight once again, like this is actually why we're talking like so and so, I needed to talk to you about this. Remember that car I said that I was going to get you? I did get the car, and things happened from point A to point B. So, do I actually have your car? The answer is how much. That something like that. Marilad, what we are right now talking about is we're talking about conversation, specifically right now in dialogue, how there needs to be a purpose. There needs to be a purpose behind it. There needs to be a reason why characters are actually speaking to each other, and there needs to be things happening. Um. So, Nathan, is there any like specific example that you would like to use? Because I know I actually have an example myself that I would use.
Not that I can. Oh, I'm on the wrong. Okay, sorry. I couldn't see things for a second. Not that I can necessarily. Not one that I necessarily have like off the top of my head. But I was just gonna add real fast before you give examples. Um, One thing I always try and think about is that like on the macro scale of like stories, the breakdown is always there's a status quo, that status quo is challenged, and thus the creation of a new status quo is created, right? That is the overarching narrative of a story, right? And that's the 3-act structure. The first act is here's the status quo. Second act is, oh no, status quo was just broken. What do we do? What do we do? And then the third act is we are establishing a new status quo, right? And to an extent, everything you do within a story has that similar progress through it, right? Like when you start a new chapter, you are here, you know what the status quo is because we just figured that out in the last chapter, right?
Mm-hmm.
But as you go through the chapter, something needs to change for the reader, for the character, for the plot, for the story, something needs to change that is going to challenge what you know about the character, story, plot, whatever, right? And that then needs to create a new status quo. And if you even zoom in further, conversations are the same way, right? Two characters aren't just going to talk about everything that they just did because they just did it together. The characters themselves have established a status quo, and they are challenging that status quo through a conversation, right? So, a good example, I think, actually, from what we were talking about with our false starts. Unless you wanted to do your example first, I could, or you can.
Okay. So, all right.
Sorry, I know that was kind of, my brain kind of went 1,000 places at the same time. Did you want to do your example first, or do you want me to do my example?
Yeah, so I'll now that brings up the Ash explained what happened with Misty's bike. That really wasn't a great explanation on Ash's part. That was some miscommunication. But
Yeah.
You can actually speak to Celeste, to the dialogue in the game Celeste, about hyperfixation and stuff like that.
Oh, 100%. Celeste is a masterpiece.
Let's see if I can. I want to share my screen for something specific, but it's not on the Camille's Harem tab, so this could be a little bit interesting. Okay, there we are. Yes, I wish to allow. Okay, you guys can see this. You guys can see see my dock right there.
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, so last week when I was first putting together last week's lesson on dialogue, I was actually making my way through this particular chapter in The Legend of the Ten Lords, Imagination's Veil, which is the 5th book in the series. So this is way later on, but I don't mind spoiling a conversation. Plus, this could change in the next draft. Who knows? But as far as like action in a conversation, and again, talking about like how there needs to be purpose. So to set things up, I've got one of my main characters, Jessica, who is dealing with depression. She's incredibly depressed because she's cursed. She is cursed, and that absolutely sucks. She has this weird tattoo that goes along her left arm and up and around her heart, that allows for evil spirits to invade her thoughts and to even cast spells through her at highly inconvenient times. So that's very sucky. And she's always feeling cold as a result of that. And then she's forced to cross over into the realms of imagination every night. And she honestly hates that because she's had such a sucky experience since book 1 to book 5. I honestly feel bad for all the things I've done to Jessica, and I will have to repent one of these days for it. And so there's that. And then on top of that, the guy that she has told, you know what, I'm not actually into you. You should get together with this other girl who does like you. Very soon after doing that, she came to realize, holy crap, I actually do have feelings for him. And now what do you do in that situation? You just told that guy that he should get together in a relationship with this other girl. And they, from Jessica's perspective, seem to be hitting it off wonderfully. It's a wonderful relationship. So she just feels sucky all around. And now she's being told, guess what, Jess? You get to go back into war. So she's depressed. She's getting hit with the heavy whammies from every direction. It just sucks. So she is walking in the middle of a winter rainstorm through this city that she doesn't know, just lost in thoughts, lost in depression. And so what I have here, and I'm not going to go through the whole thing because it's a nearly 11 pages of writing, and that's a lot. But just to kind of show how this is how I put action into writing, and you guys and Nate as well. Please feel free to add in commentary and all of that as we go through this. So, dipping her head, Jessica turned and continued down the road. She slipped on the cobblestones, barely regaining her balance before biffing it on the ground. Damn old-timey construction. What was the purpose of cobblestone anyway, when the lords could have easily used concrete? She knew that stuff existed long before the Renaissance. What was Jason so... What should be why, hence why this is definitely not the draft that's getting published. What was Jason so committed to a silly idea? Just another nuisance on this damn... Jessica slipped again. This time a strong hand caught her on the arm. A deeper cold than the morning's dreary storm shot through her. The thorny tattoo spreading across her left arm and chest caught fire. Her depression cut off the scream that should have wrenched itself from her throat. Careful there. Either change your shoes or use your presence to steady yourself, Bob muttered, stepping up beside her. Where do you always come from? Jessica wondered, but instead she croaked, What do you want? I want to make sure that you're doing all right, even when I know you're not, he replied gruffly. His grinning skull mask covered his face, but his presence exuded his emotions. Jessica could feel the deep frown behind that creepy grin. You've been in a funk ever since Samson left. But again, that was a nice slap. But it looks like you didn't do any it looks like it didn't do you any lasting good. Perhaps you need the right kind of violence to find healing? Jessica began to snarl, but her mouth suddenly clamped shut and her tongue wagged widely within her mouth. Her hands leapt to her face, clawing at her lips. Sorry, Jessica, but cursing me out won't bring you any relief. And just like with Ben, I'd appreciate if you tried not to be foul in my presence. After all, you are a strong woman, and not some bird meant for the slaughter. Though you have a good down. Leave me alone, she hissed, stalking off, slipping for a third time. Embarrassed, angry, depressed, Jessica finally clawed at the elements of imagination and accessed her presence. Steadying herself, she walked down the road, trying to put a good distance between herself and the cheapweetser. Unfortunately, Bob had different plans. Walking a step behind her, he said, I'm not going to tell you to try and find the silver lining in all this. Your current goth phase would cause you to wither at the mere sight of it. And all the hell you've been through would make it hard for you to find any worthwhile silver that doesn't smell of Samson's fecal matter. However, I'm going to tell you that wallowing in your current feelings isn't going to help you either. Talk about it with someone. It doesn't have to be me. Get those thoughts and feelings out there. Open the spigot and let the garbage out. Don't let it foul you up anymore, because I'd hate it if you turned into a hen. That's not funny, Jessica growled. Not for you, he said pointedly. I'm beginning to understand even more why Ben dislikes you. Disliked? Past tense. We have been through so much by now that he can't help but trust me. And by now he even understands. Though he may not like that. Ben has grown and will soon be the Lord he needs to be if he wants to truly pursue his wonderfully naive dreams. Jessica turned back to him and snapped, I would really appreciate if you stopped belittling Ben so much. Ah, there it is. You found that missing passion. Excellent. Rolling her eyes, she turned away. Please, Bob, leave me alone. Not until I've had my say. You've said enough. I want to be alone. Red lightning forked the sky, followed by a shaking roll of thunder. Jessica felt the virus's dangerous presence course through her suddenly. She could now feel his burning red eyes boring into the back of her skull. He was serious about wanting to speak to her. His own power stopped Jessica in her tracks. Her instincts screamed for her to flee. Her heart wanted to listen. Her depression made her stand still and do nothing. Let's have a chat. Come on. He scooped her up, holding her in both arms. Bob lifted her so effortlessly, so fluidly, that Jessica felt like she was flying. In a second, they were. Bob jumped over the buildings, gliding through the storm towards a towering tavern. It was painted so brightly that, with some help of the street's low lamplights, it gleamed like a party tent. It had all the charm and wonkiness of a fairy tale house. The virus steps softly down on its tiled roof before leaping away once more. The darkness in Jessica's arm and chest screamed out in fury and pain. Those voices hated Bob, but they had no power over him. Darkness shrank back into her heart, chilling her veins with every beat. But otherwise, the hateful whispers that loved to torment her quieted. As they flew across the city sector, Bob said, I promise you that I would help you get free of the darkness that Sean laid on you. You said I had to work that out for myself. Yes, that's true. But sometimes we all need some help to pull off the impossible. And given your current state, you are in no condition to help yourself. It's okie. Okay. It's okie to ask for help. Maybe I should keep that in there because that would be something that Bob might say. I'm not asking, she grumbled. That's correct. You're pleading. Seriously, what are you doing walking around right now? Enjoying the rain, she said dully. All right, so I'm going to stop it right there for a moment. Let's see here. What do you guys think of that? His name is Bob? Yes, his name is Bob. He uses the name Bob because he finds it really hilarious that someone as demented and powerful as him would use such a simple, silly name. That's actually not his real name. That's just the name that he tells everyone to call him. Let's see here. So Joni says, yeah, she has a reason for her behaviors. What commentary is expected? Just whatever you guys think when it comes, whatever you guys thought about that particular scene. What did you think of the dialogue? Did it have purpose to it? Was it actionable? Last week we talked about things being cinematic. Did that scene feel to you as I was reading it or as you were reading along? Did it seem like something that you're like, you know what? Yeah. Like I can picture that. I can understand it. Do the characters feel like they had some sort of emotion? Like that helps me as the author to know if I'm getting it right, but also for you as the audience. So like, is this working? And as creators yourselves, people want to write your own stories. Does this feel like you're like, okay, yeah, I now see how movement and purpose and whatnot all come together to make this conversation, which if Hollywood were to write this about opening up about your feelings and depression, they would be sipping lattes in a hallway. No sipping lattes and no hallway in this scene, and yet they are talking about feelings and mental health. Hannah says, can I read your script? It is interesting. If you guys would like, I wouldn't mind sharing this particular segment of my story on a dedicated doc and then upload it onto Discord so you guys can read it and then be all like, okay, yeah, so I like this. I can learn from it or provide feedback, which is always great for me. So yeah, I can do that for you, Hannah. Lazy writing, Hollywood. Yes, Hollywood is lazy writing. Well, thank you, Dorks, for saying that it's solid dialogue. It definitely feels believable. So that's what I was trying to do. This particular scene, especially as you continue to go through it, like it does get deep. And this is where, coming back to actually something that why Jovian brought up earlier, like personal experiences. As someone who has dealt with depression for many, many years, writing The Legend of the Ten Lords in its own way has been therapeutic for me, because there's a couple of characters who deal with depression and in different ways throughout the story. And it was kind of my way of presenting how I at times feel when I'm depressed, which is far more varied than a lot of times how depression is portrayed in fiction. And so I enjoyed being able to kind of tackle that and then have characters have conversations that I've either had with myself or that I've had with other people, or the conversations that I wish someone would have with me in one of those darker moments, and just show how you can process that and how you become stronger as you tackle something that feels in the moment absolutely insurmountable, like depression does when it strikes. And so that's what that scene, that's like the spirit of that scene. But in the moment, it is, you've got Jessica, who's dealing with so many problems, and and Bob is there to try to help her out through those problems, because he and this other guy Samson need her to be ready for the fight that's about to happen. Since she and Ben will be kind of the spearhead towards stopping their enemies in a really, really crazy series of engagements, which I actually just started today going through those chapters when the fight begins and editing them, and it is bonkers. And it's like, yeah, I need you present, wholly and completely present. I need you out of this funk, because if you go into where we're expecting to send you with that funk, weird things are going to happen, and we do not want that happening. Because the veil of imagination, which is one of the settings for the fifth book, is the filter area. So a little bit of world building for the Legend of the Ten Lords, and also this actually ties a little bit into the Monarch Mercenaries, since it takes place in the same universe. When people cross over and they go to sleep and enter into the universe of imagination, they take whatever they imagine, whatever's happening with them in their real life, and they take that with them into this other universe. And in order for someone to not be crushed by all of the everything that we feel and experience from day to day, there is this other dimension, the veil, which acts like a filter that cleans you to a certain degree, that takes away the more destructive thoughts and existential nightmares away from you as you cross over. And all of that stuff resides in the veil. So in the fifth book, they go into the veil, and so all the weird subconscious stuff starts coming to life, and it is weird, and I enjoy writing it. You're creating a story, you have to live in it. That is true. You have to think about what all goes into that particular story to make things believable within that story. You can write the most fantastical stuff, but it still has to be believable within the setting that you've created. So let's see here. Nate's probably got to take care of some stuff right now. So,
no, Nate's I'm still here.
Okay, yay. I was wondering where you're going to jump on in. Your thoughts before your thoughts about anything that I wrote, or anything that suddenly came to you before we start talking about foreshadowing through dialogue.
Yeah, I think the one thing I like, I had an example. If we have a, oh my goodness, hold on, sorry, 1 second. What? Okay. Woo! Sorry. Had a video just start playing in the background of my laptop. And it was very loud. It was on full blast. Anyway, what I was saying was that like adding I feel like every scene needs to have some sort of action in it. And I don't mean action as in like fighting or like wrestling or anything like that. Like just some sort of movement, some sort of thing. And I think that the way the characters are moving is a very good way to indicate, like you said, body language, right? One of the examples I always think of, and I can't remember where this is from, but I remember a scene where somebody was kneading dough or cooking, might have been doing both, but the character was cooking, and the way the conversation kind of like progressed was like things were normal. Somebody said something that upset him, and they start like just pounding the dough, but then like they kind of, take a second, relax, and they're able to just kind of go back to normal, right? But it's like having that movement, that action of just making dinner while the scene is happening around them, right? Yes. Just brings that extra level of realism, but also gives the character a backdrop to work with. And I had an example based off of the two things of A, having a reason for the conversation to happen, but also B, kind of having some action, some movement, some sort of interactions happening outside. It's minor, right? But I could go through a quick example if you want me to.
Yeah, by all means, please. We love examples.
Do you want me to share my screen or just kind of read it?
Yes, please. If you can share your screen, let's do it.
Okay, let's do it. If I can find the right button, let's see. Present. There it is. Share screen.
All right. Present.
I might just do. I'll just do my whole screen. Make sure there's nothing important up.
There's my social security number.
Oh no, seriously? No, I'm good. I'm good. Okay. Okay, you let me know. I think you need to.
Oh yeah. Hold on a second here. Let me scroll down. Okay, there we go. There we go. Adding it to stage.
Okay, beautiful. The endless void.
The endless void.
Yeah. So this is part of those rewrites that we used as an example earlier when we were talking about the false starts. And so this is a short scene. This is a first draft of a rewrite. I haven't even looked back to see if this makes sense yet. I just started putting words out. Have not been proofread at all. So fair warning. But kind of just to set up the scene, there is a character. They're sitting in school, and she is like bored out of her mind, and she's just listening to these people gossip in the back of the class instead of paying attention to the lesson, right? And then finally the bell rings or the bell chimes, and they kind of class disperses, and so she then approaches her best friend to the side of the room, and that's where the scene starts, right? Or the scene where we pick up the scene from. And it's I feel like I got to do the voices. Let's see if I can get into character here.
Get into character.
By Mora's love, I said, approaching Steffi to the side of the room. I didn't think that class was ever going to end. Really? Steffi asked as she stuffed her satchel. Oh, wow. My words. I'm surprised. I'd thought you would have been sad it was over. Wow. What do you mean? Wars? Legendary creatures? Slavery? Betrayal? It was action-packed. Seems like something you would have enjoyed. Wait. A crimson-cursed moment, I said, as we made our way past the schoolyard. Is that what this lesson was about? I just realized that not a lot of time has passed between here and here. See, this is why it's important to proofread. That they probably would not have been able to make it out of the schoolyard by then. The classroom, which is also going to mean I'll have to adjust the time scale as we go forth. But that's all besides the point. This is why it's good. You know, we're doing some workshopping right here, right now. It's great.
Exactly.
Yeah. Anyway, back to the story. Is that what the lesson was about? Lily? Steffi? Please don't tell me you spent the whole lesson eavesdropping again? I shrugged. Steffi shot me an exasperated glare. She nearly stepped out in front of a carriage onto the main street as her eyes was taken away from the path. Again, that doesn't really work here because not a lot of space. So I might change this to, instead of stepping out in front of a carriage, maybe bumped into another student as her eyes were taken away from where they were going, right?
Yeah. And how many times has that happened to us in school?
I know. You're looking over at your friend, you bump into somebody because you're shooting them an exasperated glare.
Yep.
Anyway, what? I'm a notorious gossip monger. I can't help it. Can't help it or won't help it. Never mind that now. Tell me more about this action-packed lesson I missed. Well, Steffi began, a hint of excitement diluting her tone. She talked a bit about the lost wars of knowledge, which, as the name would suggest, we don't know a lot about because, well, our records don't go past further than that war. However, one thing that is speculated is that the Sagekin played a large part in the war. The Sagekin? I asked. That term sounded familiar, but I couldn't quite remember what it meant. According to Mora theology, the goddess Mora isn't just the creator and protector of our world, but she also is the master of the sages. Directly under her, there are the four sages, the four leader of the sages, also known as four sage princes. I remember learning about the sage princes, I piped up. It used to be more common for people to worship them until Morism became the predominant religion, right? Exactly. It's believed that sage worship was more common before the War of Lost Knowledge. The main theological flaw with that worshipping the sage princes, is that in order to worship the sages, you also need to admit that there is a higher, more divine being. Hence the reason no one really practices sage worship anymore. It's rare, but some do still practice. Steffi nodded her head, pausing for a second as we walked down the back street to the market square. Steffi ran her hand along the back wall, feeling the stone under her hands. After a moment, Steffi added, it's believed that the Sagekin still worship their token sage. If you believe the theology, then the four races of Sagekin were created by each representative sage. Bran, the sage of fire, created Rayla. Vin, the sage of the sky, created the Elosi. Vaughn, sage of water, had the Oakwin. And lastly, Yord, the sage of earth, had the Sot. I was mildly taken aback by hearing the word Sot used in such a casual tone of voice and not being cursed out like the swear that word that I typically use it for. Four princes, four sagekin. That all sounds vaguely familiar to me. And then, I can go on further. But, well, actually, I might as well because there's not much left.
Yeah, give us a little bit more.
The sagekin have been extorted by humans throughout history, but today Miss Lalia talked about the Sot. It's believed that during the War of Lost Knowledge, many Sot were sold into slavery and used as weapons of war. The sagekin tend to stay in hiding for long stretches of time. That's kind of a weird sentence. Only showing themselves to trusted people. Some believe that the recent war unifying the North may have scared them back into hiding. But there has also been troubling reports of their numbers dwindling. Maybe they're not hiding at all, but they're starting to go extinct. Steffi's last word hung in the air between us. The sound of the bustling market square seemed so distant, with the dread of extinction present. Wowzers. It filled the space, weighing down like a thick custard. Well, I said, trying to break the tension, I could use a sweet treat after all that learning. And then they go in to buy a treat at the market square. So that's kind of the scene that I wrote. And the reason I think that this is a good example is that and I could write in more instances of action and interaction, which I actually probably will upon other drafts. But it's just kind of like, they're moving somewhere, they're doing something, She kind of uses this moment to pause, to kind of run her hands on the back wall of a building, kind of as like a retrospective moment. It's like, because the thing to know about Steffi is that she is, she's very interested in like magic and magical creatures, which are these sagekin characters are magical by nature. And so she's very like, she likes thinking about them, right? And so this is kind of her thinking about like stopping, like taking a second, just kind of thinking about all these things, on her internal thoughts before continuing on, right? So it kind of shows this introspective side of her about like this, right? Or the exasperated glare kind of gives her a little bit of personality. Like kind of shows their relationship, the two best friends relationships, how they kind of like, they can be kind of snarky with each other, because they're friends and they kind of know enough about each other that they're okay being a little bit more blunt with each other, right? But the other thing too, right, is that something needed to happen. Like there needed to be an exchange of information during this conversation because Lily obviously was not paying attention to the lesson. And so now she needs to know what the lesson was about, right? And so that's what sparks this conversation. And then the other kind of element to this conversation too is the fact that in the story as a whole, this is kind of your first chance to get more in-depth information about the Sagekin, which are going to be a very pivotal role of the story, like going forwards. And so this kind of gives you, and by the way, this is like a flashback chapter, so this all happens in the past. And so when the Sagekin are introduced in the present, reintroduced, I should say, in the present, in the upcoming chapters, it's like, oh yeah, no, we learned about that in that other chapter that they were in school for, so just kind of a good way to kind of bring all those things together. So that was my example. And that's it. I know you said you had or we probably have questions too. We could. Oh, there it is. The endless void.
The endless void. Let me change it over here to this footage. Aha! From last night after the live stream, I went back and then fought my way through Redmane Castle.
Oh, great! I was gonna say, I actually have Oblivion Remastered pulled up right now. If you want me to play as we talk, you could have some live footage.
Ooh, I mean, if you feel like it, yeah, sure. ISO says I didn't write 2,000 words in 30 minutes, so I have to split my soda with my brother. 2,000 words in 30 minutes? That is crazy.
That's a lot of writing.
Yeah, I would be impressed with anyone who can pull that off. At my best, I can probably do 1,200 words in 30 minutes. Consistently, like if I'm really in the mood, it's 1,000 words every half hour. But yeah, that I have to be in the mood. Then let's see here. There was some commentary from Wyjovian for your read, Nate. Which so first off, to answer your question, this is first person narrative, Wyjovian. As we were talking earlier,
yes.
Nate said there's the limitations for in POV. This is all first person. And then they also write down, so it's a little leading, but okay, very backstory. So again, this is a flashback, so you get definitely backstory-esque. I think as far as like dealing with the whole, this feels leading, and Nate, I think a good way of like, because I think there's something to that. I would I think what I might try doing is just maybe have Steffi reiterate, like, this is going to come up later, or like, you're going to have to write something. Right, I got to write. So tell me, what did I miss? So that way I'm like,
yeah. And I actually, I very much appreciate that little bit of feedback, because that is actually one of my concerns for this scene. And obviously this is not the finished product, right? I wanted to get the ideas down, fix it later, but that is something that I should definitely keep in mind when it comes to the rewrite for it, or the edits, right? Which I kind of figured that this this scene is a little blunt because, like I said, I just get the words out, make them sound better later, right?
Yeah.
And so you're getting a rare glimpse behind the curtains. But I do appreciate that feedback, because that's going to help me when I do go back and edit it, to make sure that it doesn't sound as leading. It'll keep me extra focused on that. So I appreciate it.
Yeah. This is why sharing your work helps get that, you get that feedback. And ISO says you wrote 1,600-ish words. That is still incredibly impressive. Like I wish that I could that I could manage that, because that is awesome. That's a lot of writing.
Yeah, that is a lot.
Mm-hmm. So Nate, if you want to stream Oblivion, I'll you can have that ready to go, and I'll upload this here.
Yeah, give me a second, because it is my controller isn't connecting. So you keep going. I'll let you know when I'm ready.
Okay.
Because I don't know why it's not connecting.
So I hope that TV account is still with us, because again, I do want to talk about foreshadowing in dialogue. Now, this is something that Scott and I actually talked about in our latest review of the Apothecary Diaries, is that there is a big difference between setup and foreshadowing. Because setup is making sure that you have all the building blocks that are necessary for your cool reveals, your plot twists, or just overall plot development to happen. And a lot of that can be very well delivered through dialogue. In fact, that makes a story feel all the more rewarding when what characters have had to say earlier actually have any sort of bearance on future events. So that is setup. Foreshadowing in dialogue comes across way better when, or at least I can tell, as I say, that you realize that you're dealing with foreshadowing when a character says something that feels like it doesn't have any bearance whatsoever on what's happening in the moment, but there's something about the way that they said it, or in the setting that they said it, that gets you to realize, I should probably pay attention to that. And sometimes you don't realize just how monumentous that scene or saying was until the foreshadowed moment happens. A really, really good example of this is in the movie The Sum of All Fears. So when the neo-Nazis are gathering together to discuss their plans to get Russia and America to go to war against each other, the leader of the group is a chain smoker, and he takes out a pack of cigarettes, and it's a moment that feels like it doesn't quite fit in the rest of the scene, because the rest of the scene is just so intense as these guys are talking about how they're going to start a world war, and you get all these ominous characters who are talking about just how far they will go to betray their own countries and whatnot. It's a really intense scene. That intense scene opens with the leader taking out his pack of cigarettes, taking out a cigarette, and then just saying very casually, "I'm told that these will kill you." And then everyone's like, obligatory laughs, because you are our leader and we have to laugh when the leader says something. However, at the end of the movie, slight spoilers for anyone who hasn't seen it, that neo-Nazi dies because of his cigarette lighter. So when the plan to start a world war between America and Russia falls through, all of the terrorists begin going into hiding, but then they all start getting hunted by the U.S. and Russia. And so as he's trying to flee, he has a guy go and check his car to make sure there's no car bomb. So the guy turns on his car, and you can tell this guy is like freaking out because he's convinced he's about to die. But then it doesn't happen. No bomb goes off or anything. The car is running totally fine. So he gets out of the car, and then the neo-Nazi leader goes in, and he gets into his car. And then because he's a chain smoker, he takes out a cigarette, puts it into his mouth. He looks at the cigarette lighter, thinks for a moment, presses it to pop it open. And as he pops open, there's a wire that pops out, and you hear a "bwee," and then the car blows up. And so the cigarette did indeed kill him, because the car bomb that was intended for him was not attached to the ignition, but to the cigarette lighter. And that scene and that foreshadowing is actually even doubled up on that when you realize it, when you see in a reflection in a window, you see the old KGB agent who's smiling as he puts on his hat, and he's the one who's rigged the bomb to blow up the car. And you then think about, there's a scene way earlier in the movie with an offhanded comment where Morgan Freeman tells Ben Affleck, watch out for that guy. Watch out for that guy. He's way smarter than you realize. And don't reveal anything about yourself that you don't have to. He probably already knows. And so you're like, who is this guy? Who is this KGB agent? And at the end of the movie, that quirk about the guy being a chain smoker or something that the KGB guy figured out so he could make the perfect bomb to catch that man. And so you have two different scenes that together foreshadow how the leader of the terrorist organization is going to get killed and taken down. Why, Joey? I'm a smoker, bro. You coming at me? No, I'm not coming at you. Just don't offend any KGB agents. And you should be just totally fine. So that is an excellent example of foreshadowing in dialogue, where characters say things in other conversations that have meaning for something that happens later. That in that conversation doesn't feel like it adds up. So the whole I'm told disease can kill you. That cigarette comment has absolutely no bearance whatsoever on what the terrorists are talking about throughout the rest of that scene. And then in the scene where Morgan Freeman tells Ben Affleck, watch out what you say around this guy, he knows way more than he's letting on, he's really dangerous, is a scene where what they're focusing on in the moment is what happened to some scientists who went missing. American intelligence says that these scientists went missing. We need to know where they're at. And the Russians are pretending are saying, oh no, this guy just got married, and this other guy is on vacation, and that's what the scene is all about. Where did these scientists go? And so that one comment, while applicable for dealing with the KGB guy, doesn't really have any bearance until later on. That is the foreshadowing. Setup is the rest of that conversation about the scientists, where they're like, oh yeah, blah blah blah, so and so just got married, and so went on vacation, and so went to go visit his mom. After they have that whole scene, Morgan Freeman then tells Ben Affleck, they're lying to us. They have no idea where these guys are. And he's like, how do you know? And then he says, so and so who just got married, yeah, we know for a fact that guy has no romantic relationships. He's an absolute loner. The guy who's out because he's sick, they said, he's like, we know that he shows up to work even when he's on the verge of death. This guy's a workaholic. He has never called out sick a day in his life. And the third guy, his mother's dead. So why would he go visit his dead mother? And that's when Affleck's like, say what? And so that's set up for one of the reveals later on about what happened to these guys, where they went, how they were used by the terrorists, and so on and so forth. I highly recommend checking out the Sum of All Fears, and you can easily find that scene that scene on YouTube. I would show it, but last week, remember how I said, those of you who were there who were here with us last week, I talked about how I wanted to avoid a copyright strike. Turns out I didn't escape it. The last stream got demonetized. It didn't get taken down, but it got demonetized for using for using the clips that I did of Beauty and the Beast and the Sherlock Holmes movies. Nate, I see that you got your footage up. Are you good to show it? Or shall we continue watching my guy swing wildly? But yeah, let's see here. TV account. Let's see here. So you wrote, I think what got me thinking about this was a funny conversation Bulkhead had about where Sorry actually came from. It's from Transformers Animated. It was just a joke until season 2 finally and season 3 in the season 3's 3-part special. Okay. So something that he shared ends up becoming relevant later on. And yeah. So let's see here. Any other good foreshadowing in conversations? Well, for the Deltarune fans amongst us, there's the conversation that now has even more significance to it, being the conversation with Caddy at the end of chapter 2, where Caddy talked about how Noelle is the lights, and you got to keep Noelle away from Susie, and it seems like and Caddy says that she taught Noelle some spells. We now have some context for that, and and kind of the foreshadowing as has been revealed to us in the trailer, and now with the new lore dump. Oh yeah, we some dark stuff is about to happen. Caddy was right. And there's a reason why Caddy wants to keep Susie away from Noelle, because Caddy is not as dense as Noelle or Susie are. Now it all makes sense. Okay. All right, Nate, what do you say? Merge Drones is full of foreshadowing. So I says Merge Drones is full of foreshadowing, but most of it is background. One good dialogue foreshadowing is V's new body, same horrors, huh, Sin? Yes. Oh my gosh, I love that line. That is such a good line.
Can you hear?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Oh, okay, that explains it. Yeah, you can put up my stream if you want.
Okay, excellent.
I think when I connected my controller, it like defaulted to my controller mic, and so anything up.
Got it. Dark Stage says I still need to make my list of prompts for my Delta June art challenge. Yes, and yeah, do it now. May is passing by faster than you think. All right, both presenting. Wait a second here. Before presenting a screen, we remove other media. Got it. Okay. So I just need to make sure I take that down, and then there we go.
Here I am.
All right. Oh boy. Woo. I haven't seen this game in a while.
They did a lot to kind of update the visuals, but it's still like the same game, or almost the same game under the skin, which I really appreciate.
Nice. All right. So let's see here. Any thoughts on other kinds of foreshadowing dialogue?
I don't really have any examples. Well, I guess kind of the dialogue that I shared is kind of fits into that same scope. But yeah, I think that dialogue is a great way to add foreshadowing. At that, yeah, that's about it.
Okay. Uh, so let's see here. Other so in terms of like, let's think if you wanted to set up, like, so TV count, if we want to think about like setting up some good foreshadowing in a in a conversation, and also do it in a way that doesn't feel like, oh ho ho, wink wink, that's going to be important later. I mean, some foreshadowing can be
Right.
like that, but in a conversation, you want it to flow naturally. And while
Hmm.
there might and characters don't, unless they're Deadpool, don't know what's happening next. Uh, so so I think so. Let's say, for instance, so I'll take an example that uh, you have a couple. So and I'm just thinking this because I've been reading the Stormlight Archive recently. You've got some priests who are walking through a castle, and they're really perturbed by what the royalty is doing, and they can be all like, oh no, like if they continue going with this, if they continue down this path of action, this is going to have serious consequences. They've been too long feasting and going on hunts that they haven't been around the normal people. They don't realize how much they're suffering. Yeah, I know. No, and they're like, things could get wrong. Though the knights hold on to the weapons, that doesn't mean that the peasants don't know how to defend themselves. They have to fight bears and wolves all the time. And then one guy can be all like, and remember the revolution. I'm like, oh yeah, but that was like 80 years ago. Doesn't mean it can't happen again. Again, 80 years is a long enough time for our betters to have forgotten what happened. Well, then we got to make sure that we remind them of that. And so by having that particular kind of a conversation, like these, as Nathan said, there's a purpose behind what's going on. These priests are concerned about what the nobility is doing and how this could lead to problems. One guy says, "Remember the revolution? Oh, that happened 80 years ago." And so you then, as the reader, pick up on, revolution could happen. We shall eat the rich. And so then the reader or the audience starts looking out then for signs of a possible revolution. Could that actually happen? They start paying more attention to what's happening in the background, to the poorer characters, and stuff like that. And so, here's another and so this is then where, like, as far as like setup versus foreshadowing goes, if the story focuses more on like the nobility and the priest class, the people who are in positions of power and not really amongst the peasantry in this particular story, then it definitely is more foreshadowing because you're not seeing how the peasants are reacting. But if your story begins to show more of what's happening with the small timey folk, what's happening with them, how they're reacting to the choices of the nobility that the priests are so concerned about, that then you see the revolution building, that's when the conversation becomes setup rather than foreshadowing. There's still a hint of foreshadowing to it. It still technically falls under that umbrella, but in terms of just like purely what it is more setup. So perspective is very important to if something becomes foreshadowing or setup. What kinds of information you release to the characters, and thereby then to the audience, to the readers, or to the viewers, that helps to shape whether this will be setup or foreshadowing. Why Joey asks, "Do I have an opinion? Do I have an opinion on the multiple French revolutions?" The French are going to French.
Well said.
Well
Oh my
said.
goodness.
Yeah. De France. Yeah. You know what? The one thing that I will say is this, as far as like history goes, being a historian myself, is that most historians like to take Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels' point of view on the revolutions of the 1800s. And I'll just say this: Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels uh, really did not comprehend a lot of what was happening, and it's actually in their own writings as well. It's something that a lot of historians conveniently forget, that Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels, for instance, were really really ticked off that the German revolutions and then later on the French revolutions didn't lead to the communist utopia that they predicted would happen, and
No,
and
no.
no, and and,
I
and
uh I apologize. There's a
okay.
really bad like delay, so like
Oh,
there's enough lag that I keep like missing places that I mean to go.
lag, you're doing me in. Uh, but
Yeah.
um, but yeah, that as a historian, that as well say. And the thing is, this is that one of the things that they were so confused about is like, why do these Germans and French still love their country? Don't they realize that they're just workers? And it's just like, oh boy, Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels. You need to get yourselves out of that perspective and actually come to realize who people are. They're not just cogs in a machine that constantly work to make stuff happen. People are people. So, and that's good advice for writing. Your character, it's so easy to turn our characters into cogs that move the plot along. Don't treat your characters like cogs. They are people. And the more that you can bring out that individuality, even if they're just side characters, even just giving them like some traits that make them stick out a little bit more, even if they're nameless. I mean, a name helps with a trait, but then even if even if they go nameless, but you describe the characters in the crowd just to give it some flavor, that just makes the world and the characters feel more real, rather than again as cogs that move the plot along. Uh, why Jovian? Could I write propaganda? I could if I wanted. Master Knight, there's actually something I came up with for the MPDG. If nothing else, I'm trusting the flow is decent. Should I go ahead and provide what the idea is? Yes, Master Knight, please share your idea with us. It would be nice. People are potentially amazing. That is the proper mindset to have for going out into the world. That go in expecting that people can be decent and are decent. That's the that's the right way of going about things, in my opinion. Master Knight says, so you're looking down. Let's fix that, shall we? Saying this while she is smiling and has her palm on the side of Saul's face and has directed his view upward to her eyes. Ooh la la, what is going on here? Is this an MPDG or is this a dating sim? Oh my gosh! How many of you have seen those dating simulators for dating characters from Lovecraftian horror? That is that's something just absolutely bizarre and weird. Why Jovian says write something off the cuff. Well, let's see here. If I were to write something off the cuff, I mean Nate's right now got his screen sharing, so I'm going to let. Actually, you know, I
That be
might.
your inspiration.
Yeah, let that be the inspiration. Hannah says, "Do you think having a person in the story can be a MacGuffin for the plot? I thought it'd be interesting instead of an object." Oh, absolutely. I know this is really like this is a derisive thing that people say for like movie reviews and the likes, but here's the girl who is the key to everything. But it's actually okay to write a character like that. A kid, a boy, a girl, a man, a woman, and it whatever uh can be the key. A good example of this is The Fifth Element.
Mm. What a
Because
trippy movie.
what a trippy movie. Because that's what she is. You need her. You need Lulu for the humans to win. And so she is indeed the key. She is a MacGuffin that everyone else is after, and that Bruce Willis just happens to have throughout the entire story. So it works, and that's absolutely fine. Let's see here. Ooh, oh, I am not going to spoil the details, but Steelheart has a MacGuffin character. Yeah, you should know what I'm referencing, Nate.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of who.
End of the first book, the discovery that they make about what Steelheart is hiding. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that character ends up essentially being a kind of MacGuffin. Yeah, I that is what, just like Beyonders, I will never spoil Steelheart because it's so good.
Yeah.
Holy crap.
Steelheart's a good it's a good twist.
Yes. Yeah. And for those of you who don't know about the book Steelheart, it's written by Brandy Sandy Buns.
Brand Bun Sandy Gand.
Yep, exactly. It's an alternate universe where the superheroes are all supervillains. And the guy who is Steelheart is basically a variation of Superman, who is evil and has taken over Chicago. And he's got way more powers than Superman, which makes him even more horrifying, actually, to go up against. And you have a group of humans, regular humans, much like in The Boys, who are going to take out all the superheroes. And it is the twists and turns in the first book especially are so good. The identities of different characters, what their powers actually are, what motivates certain people. It's just, it's so good. It's such a great read. Let's see here. Hannah. So Hannah says, but I want her to have her own agency. Absolutely. MacGuffin characters can have agency. You definitely, and that makes a character actually way more interesting. A good example of this, even though people panned the movie, it actually is worth watching. Jupiter Ascending. Jupiter is a MacGuffin character, and she's the main character. And we get to see her make her own choices and learn and do stuff throughout the movie. So she has agency. She's not just an item to be acquired. Hannah says, I don't want her to be boring, useless character, so I think they sure be more than maybe twist the trope a little bit, or them I hate Titanbro. No worries, Hannah. Yeah, give a character more personality, more agency, give them a character arc, and they become more than just a trope or an archetype or a MacGuffin. Why Jovian says still a bad movie. You know what? Like, Jupiter Ascending definitely did not reach its full potential. Definitely did not. But there are some really good scenes in Jupiter Ascending. Let's see here. I think I missed something. Oh yeah, from ISO. I'm suddenly reminded of a dream I had where I dated a girl with eldritch powers. That is a great dream. Yeah, Sucker for Love. Yep, that's the one, Dorcas Daydream, Sucker for Love. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, it definitely worth making like a story about that. There actually is a let's see here. There's two manga I recently came across. One is my employee. One is my coworker is an eldritch god, and then the other one is my girlfriend is an eldritch abomination. And the my girlfriend is the Eldritch Abomination one is kind of interesting, but the one about my coworker being an Eldritch god is downright horrifying. It's so messed up. It's perfectly Lovecraftian. I says that dream was kind of inspiration for my liminal horror story before I completely forgot that it was inspiration. Well, now it can be inspiration for something else. All right, why Jovian is going to give Jupiter Sending a rewatch. Still, though, I loved her. You may be an eldritch monstrosity. You may have powers that bend and melt my mind, but by golly, you're just the perfect woman for me. Scott might be lurking somewhere and it's just like, oh, Lars, no, please, no, I don't need. Oh my gosh. Let's see here. Something else about good about oh wait a second here. Did I miss something from Master Knight? No, it doesn't look like I've missed. Okay, I got everything there for Master Knight DH. Thus far, waiting for more. Okay, so let's see here. Another so you know what? I will continue on with reading some dialogue as you play this, Nathan, as you continue playing. So last week I talked about purple prose and dialogue. I'm going to read for you guys an example that is just a pure abomination. And granted, it's definitely not my best writing, and I'm okay with that because of what it is, because it's meant to be bad. You guys, it will allow it to curse your ears. So I will also have this uploaded on the doc for Discord. All right, so here is the purple prose. Here's the purple prose dialogue. The garden was luscious, with all kinds of exotic flora. Fanning fronds imported from the deepest jungles overshadowed the couple, keeping them cool in the warm Sunday afternoon. In fact, it was the same afternoon that Duke Henderson von Pigtails declared war on the House of Frankfurters for withholding their daughter's hand from his youngest son in marriage. The war that would soon devastate the pleasant land. But before then, this most vital conversation of budding romance was taking place. My darling baby buggy bugaboo, Miss Sally Edmund von Watertown, I was feeling nothing but the greatest feelings of adulating, enlightening arousal while gazing upon your most lovely image. It nearly moved me to tears, and I knew I had to speak with you, Charles said, pacing frantically across the whitewashed floorboards of the veranda. His frantic steps left scuff marks and traces of mud that would take hours and hours to buff out and polish before the next coat of white paint would have to be applied. Sally watched his ungainly movement and scrunched her nose in disgust. She wasn't sure what was more inappropriate, how Charles of Downhill felt for her, or that it happened during the truly stirring and repentance-imploring sermon. Speak your mind then, Sally said, bracing her spine against the worst that this young fool had to say, for truly his lustful, frothing mouth would spew a torrent equal to a hurricane full of sophomoric soliloquy regarding romance. Damn it, he has a nice butt. Sally would have to repent the moment the conversation was over. Now, granted, there's a whole lot more to put in there, but already, as I read that, as I read that right there, Iso says I'm gagging. I'm gagging even more now. Sadly, not good poetry. Exactly. Purple prose, unless you're putting them in ironically, suck.
Hey, Lars, sorry to interrupt. I actually got to step off real fast.
Okay, no worries.
I might be back, so I'm just gonna go on mute.
Okay.
but you don't have to wait around for me if you're gonna close off soon. But
Yeah,
I
let's
don't
see
know
here.
how
I
long
might.
I'll be out.
I'll go a little bit longer, but then I'll clock out.
Gotcha.
Because yeah, I'm going on for 2.5 hours. Woohoo!
Gotcha. Sounds good. Okay. Well,
All right.
I might just head out then.
Okay.
Thanks for
All right.
having me on.
Yeah.
Thank
Thank you
you
so much, Nate.
to the wonderful chat. You guys always make these so much fun. And we'll see you next time.
All right. Toodles. Okay. So yeah, that was that right there was an example of purple prose put into a moment of dialogue. It's not pretty. It's not good. And I mean, even if I were to continue writing this out and show what's happening between these two characters, uh, it's just bad. Oh my gosh. It's just too much description that takes away from the most important thing, which is these two characters interacting. Sure, there's movement, but it's just bogged down by needless detail. And then plus the way that they're talking is just dumb. It's just stupid. So yeah, don't go purple prose. It completely overburdens whatever you're writing. Yeah, what about yellow prose? Wait, they don't exist. So Hannah, again, I will upload the entirety, at least of my script that I was sharing with you guys, and more up onto Discord. For Nate, we'll see if he wants to share more for people to read through and everything. Maybe that'll give him a little bit more motivation to keep on writing, but that will have to be his choice. Let's see here. I'm going to give Master Knight DH a little bit more time because I think he wanted to share a little bit more. So I'll give him that time, and I'll jump back on. Let's see. You guys want to continue on just a little bit more with some of the dialogue that I wrote from Imaginations Avail before we close out, or are there any other big questions that you guys would like to ask as far as dialogue or any other aspect of writing before we close out tonight? Say, let me know in the chat, and we'll go on from there. And this gives me a moment to take a much needed drink of water. Okay, Master Knight says, I'm not even sure what else to say anyway, but it sounds like my idea should be A-okay. Yes, excellent. Great to hear that, Master Knight DH. Say, and no need to share anything that share more than what you feel is necessary. I says, hey, I'm actually almost happy with my first chapter. Now I finally realize what I want from it. 500th draft, and I'm finally happy. Yay, you're getting there. Dory says, what other examples besides ordering pizza can be used to practice writing dialogue? Okay, then. So other than ordering pizza, which is a great example, here's what I would suggest. And this is going to sound incredibly immature, especially for certain stories. But believe you me, especially for stories where this would not fit in, this could be absolutely revelatory. And write a conversation of characters swapping gossip, like romance gossip. So did you realize that so-and-so is dating so-and-so? It gets really fun to write, and it says a lot about your characters. TV Count says, I find it interesting in conversations that were used as jokes turn out to be foreshadowing. LOL. Okay. This isn't quite so jokey as it is more ominous, but in a deleted scene from Pirates of the Caribbean, when Elizabeth Swann is just tearing into Jack Sparrow, for it's like, you spent 3 days on the beach, drinking rum. Welcome to the Caribbean, love. And then but what she then says is like, is there any truth to the stories? And then he stops, and he turns, and he's like, is there any truth to the stories? And he rolls up his sleeves, and he shows the brand and the tattoo from earlier. But then you realize there is a ritualistic cut on his other arm that's festering, that looks like it has just been slashed. And you're like, wait, what? And then he opens up his shirt, and there's a hole in his chest that should have killed him, but he's still alive. And so the brand, the tattoo, the ritualistic cutting in the hole in his chest, and he says, no, there's no truth at all. And turns around and leaves without saying another word. So they left that part out because they wanted to keep it lighthearted, and it flows better than into them singing and jumping around the fire, saying yo ho, a pirate's life for me, which is a great song, and it's now going to get stuck in my head. And so they took out that part because it just helps everything to flow better. But it's great because even though Jack Sparrow was not the main character of the first movie, that would be Will Turner and Elizabeth Swann, that deleted scene was foreshadowing for everything to do with the Black Pearl, Davy Jones, and the one lady whose name I can never say correctly, Duolotuma or whatever, the sea witch, who actually is the sea. That scene was meant to foreshadow what they could possibly explore in regards to Jack Sparrow's history, why he is the way that he is, how did he get the Black Pearl, and all of this. And it gives you in the moment a new respect for Jack, as well as helps to explain like why he like who he is. But then it doesn't, or I should say, it doesn't exactly explain, but it gives you an idea of why he is the way that he is, and it becomes foreshadowing. Yeah, Tia Dalma, thank you, ISO. Yeah, Tia Dalma. The slash along his wrist is for Tia Dalma. The hole in his chest, we actually don't think we ever find out what the hole in his chest is about. But the pirate brand and the tattoo connect to who he was as a young man who went against slavers, took the ship and who committed mutiny, took the ship, the Black Pearl, had it sunk, and then the deal he made to get it back, which is why Davy Jones has claim to his soul. So all just great stuff that's being foreshadowed in that one deleted scene. I wish that they had found a way to keep it in, because it would have been awesome. So yeah, another great moment of foreshadowing within dialogue. Doris Agent says, now imagining Veronica and Courtney gossiping about Genevieve and Ryan. Oh, yeah. Say a good writing gossip is a great way of practicing dialogue. And again, even if it doesn't fit with your characters, that actually then forces you to think in a different way about these characters and how they might act in certain situations, which is always good. To try to figure out those other layers of your characters and how they would act, who they are. That's all very important. And let's see here. Another writing exercise that you could use to practice dialogue. I think, let's see here. Put in terms of putting your characters into into an interesting, realistic situation. Um, put them into a car accident. Have 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 one of your characters rear end another. And what is the conversation that comes out of that? Emotions are running high. You damaged my car. What were you thinking? Are you drunk? Or are you okay? Here's my insurance card. Everything's going to be A-okay, and so on and so forth. Why Jovian? Still, as developing layers of my characters, is it worth it? Oh, absolutely. The more layered and more interesting your characters are, the more engaging they have the potential to be. Now, you can go too deep. You can get to the point where you have a book describing every single little detail about your character and why it's important, and that might not necessarily have any bearance on the story whatsoever. It's good to have answers for who your characters are, what they like, why they like it, who they are, why they are that way. But it needs to still be relevant to the overall story. If there's no relevancy for the stuff that you're putting in, then it really shouldn't be there. Also, from last night, I wasn't able to fight these guys while doing the live stream, so I went back and fought them later on in the evening. Huzzah! And with endgame equipment, it went a whole lot easier than my first run through. I don't know how many times I died to these guys. The first time I played Elden Ring, oh boy, I was really suffering. But here we are. Say my first try here, cheesing. All right. Let's see here. I think, unless you guys have any other questions about writing, I think that might do it then for tonight. I'll already. Oh yeah, those guys suck. Yeah, they suck so much the first time playing through. I had a harder time with them than I had with Radon. But let's hear it. So to remind you guys, next week's live stream will be earlier in the week. It will not be on a Friday because it's graduation time, and I'll be at graduation celebrations and parties later in the week. So that's why the live stream will be happening earlier. I don't yet know if I will do it either on Wednesday or Thursday. That will come down to several factors. But I will let you guys know ahead of time when I intend to do it. I'll have the next writing lesson for us ready to go, and I'm hoping to be able to get out some new videos for you guys here pretty quick. So that should be fun. You guys won't have to wait long for the next stuff. And if you don't mind me asking any of you guys to do this, please share the video that I made for the Gaslight District. Whether you recommend it to other people personally, share it through social media or what have you, it would really help out. And the reason why I'm asking is because I really do want to get more feedback of what people thought about the Gaslight District. I'm really happy that I think every comment on that video so far has been of people talking about what they liked and what they didn't like. And that's been really, really helpful. And the reason why I want that data is because the Gaslight District is so unique. It's so different. And it's when you compare it to, for instance, the Amazing Digital Circus, it's obviously not going to get anywhere near as popular as the Amazing Digital Circus. That's just a fact. And that's okay. But I also see how it's divided people within the Glitch fan base. And not to the point where the fans are eating each other. Thank goodness. Not yet. Hopefully we don't get there. But again, it's good to know why people like what they do and why people don't like what they do, especially especially for a very bold project like the Gaslight District, because there are those of us uh, who are writing our own very bold projects. I mean, for instance, my stuff with Monarch Mercenaries and with the Legend of 10 Lords is very different from a lot of fiction out there right now. And because it's so different, because it is in many ways so out there, I understand if people wouldn't necessarily like that. And it helps me to learn. And for anyone else who's wishing to go into, and for anyone else who's wishing to go along with a more bold story, something far more inventive, it's good to know what people are expecting and what they aren't, and learn from that. And no, Wajovian, I will continue talking now that you say that. I don't take any orders from you. But we have though come to that point. So everyone, thank you so much for being here, for your comments, for your participation, for your respect. It has all been great, and you guys have been wonderful as well. So until the next video, y'all, which I'm hoping to upload here pretty soon, I will see you guys. Until I see you guys then in that new video, I do bid thee a choose.